gentlemen, this is Vince Miller. Thank you so much for joining me for our devotional today. We are in Daniel chapter 11. I'm just going to read one verse, verse 10 for you today, but let's recall where we're at in the chapter. Remember, there's this angelic being who has come to visit with Daniel, and he has come to him to explain to him a bunch of future events. He has already revealed to him 4 future emperors: Xerxes from Persia, Alexander the Great from Greece, Ptolemy from the Empire of Egypt, and Seleucus from the Empire of Syria. And then we learn about the marriage between Berenice and Antiochus II and how their marriage and alliance between Syria and Egypt did not work out as the fathers planned. So Berenice's brother from Egypt, Ptolemy III, takes revenge for the murder of Berenice, and he kills the son of Antiochus II in Syria, invades them, and carries back a lot of wealth. Okay, that's a lot, I know. But then this happens in verse 10. His sons shall wage war and assemble a multitude of great forces, which shall keep coming and overflow and pass through, and again shall carry the war as far as his fortress. So the sons here are the sons of Seleucus II from Syria, who continued the wars with Ptolemy in the empire in Egypt. The sons' names were Seleucus III Ceraunus and Antiochus the Great, or Antiochus III. And I know there are a lot of hard to pronounce names here that are not going to be easy for you to remember. I can hardly pronounce them, and I can barely remember them. But I'm using their names for a reason. This is because some people will claim that the Bible is just simply a work of fiction. In fact, Brian Baker, in his book, Nonsense from the Bible, states this. He says, the Bible is a collection of stories and myths based on hearsay transmitted from generation to generation, and which were recorded by many, that's 40 plus, different authors during a period spanning possibly 1,600 years or more. The evidence then is only to be found in the Bible. No historical, scientific, or authenticated archaeological evidence exists. If you check the internet, notice where he goes. If you check the internet for such evidence, you will discover many websites by Christian ministries all present the evidence only from the Bible. Most so-called archaeological evidence is based on supposition rather than fact. And you know, people like Mr. Baker make declarations like this all the time. For a moment, just consider the first 10 verses of this chapter. I mean, the date of the writing of chapter 11 is actually declared in verse 1. It's 535 BC. The events of verses 2 through 10, which are the only ones we've read so far, have not yet occurred for Daniel. They are declared by God, and the predictions continue to move ahead in time. Verse 10 dates at around 223 BC. Hundreds of years after the writing of this, and hundreds of years after Daniel's death. And guess what? The prophecy is going to continue into even more detail. That's why I'm adding in the names. I want to remind us that these people lived, and the events predicted by this angel happened. In this text, we have a chronicle of events that occurred into the future in great detail. These names are real people, ruling kings who battled it out for years. Our Bible is not a work of fiction. It's not just a history book, in fact. It's way more. It's a supernatural book that has a supernatural effect on man. It's 40 authors, over 1,600 years of supporting evidence that God is still speaking to man. So remember, when you read this book, don't dismiss it as a work of fiction, as some would suggest. When you read it, you're reading a supernatural declaration by God, and if you let it, it will have a supernatural effect on you as well. I love you guys. I pray this blessed you today. If it has, blessed someone else with it. And with that, I'll see you right back here again tomorrow.